Well, good morning. You may be wondering, did I just walk off the street and walk up here? I assure you, the elders are aware that I'm speaking to you now. My name is Paul Mazzalongo. I hail from the Choctaw Church of Christ. I serve there as a deacon over missions, and my other passion and ministry is BibleTalk.tv. So this morning, instead of a wonderful class, you're stuck with me, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about the ministry that my family has been involved in for over 20 years. So I'd like to start and begin by sharing the story of how my father became a Christian, since this is closely related to the origin story of BibleTalk.tv. My father, Mike Mazzalongo, was a product of an outreach done by a small mission church in Montreal, Canada. He was born and he grew up there in an all-Catholic environment, and his journey begins with my grandfather, Tony, a journey that my father calls from Mafia to ministry. First of all, you have to understand I never met my grandfather, Tony. I just heard the stories about him. So for a kid like me who was used to going to church 3 times a week and would probably get smacked if I said, "Oh my gosh," in front of my mother, I was pretty fascinated by this kind of mythical character that was my grandfather. He was very movie-like. I didn't necessarily look up to him, but he just seemed like from another world. To begin with, Tony was a boxer. They called him Battling Mazzalongo because of his very aggressive fighting style. According to Dad, he had about 25 pro fights, but he decided to quit and get out of boxing after the second time when he broke his nose. Dad said it's because he wanted to save whatever looks he had left. Club fighters, boxers in the 1930s in Montreal mixed with local athletes, with people in show business, and with mobsters who ran all the gambling. And all of this went hand in hand with the boxing matches. Tony's training with his footwork in the ring lent itself very well to ballroom dancing. And so after leaving boxing, Tony opened a ballroom dancing studio. This is where he met my grandmother Jane, and where they had a great time working by day and catching a very active nightlife in Montreal by night. After a while, Tony was hired as a bouncer, as a security guard for illegal gambling houses in the city. I remember stories that my dad would tell me as a 12-year-old boy, coming back from his music lessons and knocking on the lime green door of the Rotella Club where Tony worked. Dad was not the usual patron of this place, but they would just buzz him right in because they knew that he was Tony's boy. I can only imagine the things that my dad saw in this place. My kids don't get to watch a Disney movie without parental approval these days. But his upbringing was very different. Inside this club, there were separate rooms with card games, dice, and roulette in the back room. My grandfather was there to make sure that there was no trouble with sore losers or desperate guys who had just lost their paychecks. Sometimes he'd give them a little cash for a taxi or for groceries. Tony tried having legitimate work as a waiter in hotels, but this didn't last very long because Tony liked to gamble. So eventually he just became a full-time bookie. Unlike today, back in the 50s and 60s, off-track gambling and betting were illegal in Montreal. Britain and other places had betting parlors. However, Montreal's off-track betting and gambling was controlled exclusively by the mob. So Tony basically worked for them. Dad would tell me several phone lines were located in their home and would be ringing all the time with people calling in for bets. Tony would keep track of all of these things in his book. He was a bookie. Somebody else is familiar with that. We need to have an intervention maybe. Different lesson. So this he recorded in his book. Everybody paid because just like in the movies, my grandfather had a close friend and associate in public relations named Michael Nero, and he would visit anybody who was unwilling to pay with the Louisville Slugger, so everybody paid up. I remember hearing stories of my grandmother coaching my father on what to say. If anybody asked him at school, "What's your name and what does your dad do for a living?" I believe the answer was, "My name is Mike Mazzalongo and my dad's a bookkeeper," and you just leave it at that. It was not uncommon to see police detectives come by the house to pick up their cash envelopes to ensure that Grandpa would be able to continue running his operation without interference. On one occasion, 2 of these officers showed up and actually apologized to my grandfather for arresting him, captain's orders. It gave him time to put away his papers, most likely evidence, and they would not dare handcuff him because they didn't want to embarrass him. It's not on?
I think he's.
Oh, did I flip it off?
Yeah. There you go.
Okay, thank you, sir. Oh, side button. Not the tech guy. I skipped ahead. All right. Let's see, excuse me. He was home for supper that night. Tony died in front of my father of a heart attack early May 1962. He was 53 years old. My dad was only 15 at the time, and suddenly the man of the house. His funeral was right out of a movie. The viewing lasted for 3 days, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., with people streaming in and out all day long. Mostly people my grandmother had never even seen. They walked in a funeral parade from the funeral parlor all the way to the church for high mass, complete with full choir. A couple of weeks after he died, 2 men came to my grandmother's house to get Tony's book, containing the list of all the clients and all the money that was owed. After threatening her, she told them that she had thrown it away. She did this because she didn't want anybody to come back at him. Their response: "We know where Tony's boy goes to school." These enforcers returned several times, but eventually they believed Jane that she had actually thrown it away, and they left her alone. On the day Tony died, he had met with several men who wanted him to open up a restaurant. They would finance it, he would front it. It would be called Tony's Spaghetti House. Because of his celebrity status in the community and as a boxer, they wanted him to front it. And after that meeting, he left with $4,000 in his pocket, which today is about 40 G's. My grandmother said that when the ambulance took his body away, he didn't have anything in his pockets. The night he died, he had gambled it all away. So there they were, my grandmother and my dad. No money, no insurance, no prospects. Thankfully, Tony's people paid for a beautiful funeral that does very little to pay for rent, put groceries on the table. So what does a young man do when he's looking for direction? Well, I would say quite often he follows the direction he's been given. The only man that Dad knew was his father, so he followed in those footsteps. Tony was not a religious guy, so Dad wasn't a religious guy. Tony liked nightclubs, fancy cars, dancing, easy money, so Dad did the same. Dad spent money on clothes, opened and operated dance halls, he hung out in nightclubs, and was involved in a bunch of shady business. By 1973, at the age of 25, he was making about $150K a year and probably feeling pretty good about himself. However, by 1977, just a few years later, he was addicted to drugs. He had lost his home, he lost his car, all of his money, and he was living on his cousin's couch. Mike had followed the direction he'd been given, and it led him to an absolute dead end. Here's the interesting part. All that time that my father was living in this darkness, he was still searching for something else. He was searching for something that was true. But he had followed the only thing that he knew. He'd come to a psychological dead end that said, if this is the best thing there is in life, why go on living? He had tried drugs and money and fast living, as he explained, and it was like the old song by Peggy Lee, "Is that all there is?" I have no idea who Peggy Lee is, but that's what he says. Dad recalls asking himself the same question. Is this all there is? Was it? 15 years of living in the fast lane, doing what he wanted to do, when he wanted to do, and as much of it as he wanted to do had left him exhausted, sick, broke, and cynical. He was headed for the same end as Tony, but he was getting there a lot faster. Then something unexpected happened. Something providential happened. One day he's sitting on his cousin's couch. He's looking for work. He's searching for anything. He picks up a local paper. He's looking through the classified ads for work, cars, all that stuff, and also some ads that they would give to churches for free. Of course, most of the church ads back then were, bingo night at St. Luke's Catholic Church, or coat giveaway at the Presbyterian Church, or come worship with us at the Bethel Evangelical Church, and so on. But then he sees a one-column ad that said, "Sinners are welcome at the Church of Christ." You know how sometimes something will just speak to you? Sometimes it's when I'm sitting in a pew and it feels like somebody's moving the spotlight on me. I was like, whew, man, that was for me. I remember him telling me the story. And he says he just looked at that article and he said, they're talking to me. He's like, man, I'm that sinner. The rest of his conversion story would probably be something pretty familiar. He visited a small congregation that had posted the ad. They only had 35 members, but he remembers a tidy little church and friendly people. Interestingly enough, this congregation had been planted by a church out of San Antonio, Texas, MacArthur Park Church of Christ. They also supported the preacher, Jim and Betty Metter, who were actually from Florida. So Dad visited a few times and agreed to a Bible study where all his questions were answered with scriptural references. That's important. He had grown up Catholic his whole life. He was a teacher in a Catholic school. And when he actually started reading the Word, started reading the Bible for himself, and he'd bring it to his priest, he always got, "Oh, you just don't understand. You just don't get it." But he never got his questions answered. So after this Bible study, he would be immersed into Christ and he'd begin walking in a new direction. This time, he'd be walking in the steps that lead towards the Heavenly Father. Not long after that, after he was baptized, my mom, Lise, would also put on Christ, and they would, together, begin attending and serving. The ad, "Sinners are welcome at the Church of Christ," only ran once. And he was the only person to respond to it. No one knocked on his door. No one talked him into believing. He didn't lose a debate about God or about baptism. He didn't come to Christ because of a spouse or a friend. Don't get me wrong, great methods. Nothing wrong with the method. But the fact is that Mike was searching for the Lord, and the Lord found him. Now, I say all of this to explain that when my father decided to go into full-time ministry, he chose to be trained in both mission work and in the use of media. He did this at Oklahoma Christian University in Oklahoma. This connection between media and ministry came to him one night as he drove up to the lookout on Mount Royal. That's what you see behind me. It's located in the middle of the city. My wife and I used to go drive up there because you can see forever. It's amazing. You can see almost the whole city. It's the second largest French-speaking city in the world. There's behind Paris. It's like 4.2, 4.3 million people today. And he remembers that night when he was up there realizing three things. As he's looking out over the city, that every one of those little lights below belonged to a soul. And that each one of those homes had a TV or radio. Again, no computers back then. And that he could enter into each one of those devices and preach the gospel to those people that lived there. And the third thing he realized was that out of all those millions of people, there had to be other people that were just like him, that had been looking. It became his goal at that moment to use every form of media to search for those people. Mike used telephone ministries, newspaper ads and articles, radio programs, television programs to preach the gospel. And 20 years ago, my brother-in-law, Hal Gatewood, and my father, Mike Mazzalongo, created a Bible teaching website known to us today as BibleTalk.tv, so that they could continue to repeat the same message that he had heard so many years ago. Sinners are welcome at the Church of Christ. Today, there are over 1,500 videos and an additional 1,500 articles currently archived on this site. These cover every book in the Bible, in addition to hundreds of Bible-related topics. Our promotional slogan is BibleTalk.tv, know the Bible better. Every piece of teaching material on our site has been vetted for its biblical accuracy and its soundness by the 6 elders that oversee our congregation and that oversee this ministry. We also have 20 other congregations that support this work, as well as 1,000 daily viewers that are very quick to point out if they see something that is inconsistent. You can't do anything anymore without somebody pointing out what they don't like about it. That's part and parcel with the ministry. So what is Bible Talk? Well, much like the Jews in the wilderness, when they first saw food on the ground in Exodus 16:14, they asked, what is it? Manu, right? Which eventually became the name manna. But when viewers first come to Bible Talk, they are often a bit overwhelmed because there's so much material, there's so many resources that can be used in so many different ways. So, what is the site? And more importantly, how do we use it? Well, as I mentioned earlier, BibleTalk.tv is primarily a Bible teaching website that offers all of its resources for free, 100%. Every video lesson, every sermon, every devotional, as well as all the printed transcripts and articles, they're all available for download, to copy, and to distribute anytime for free. We don't even ask our viewers, we don't ask them for gifts, we don't even ask them for their email address. If they want to subscribe, great. We don't ask you to do anything. So how does it work? Well, because there is so much content, the most often asked question is, how do we use it and where do we begin? Well, since there are a Bible teaching website, I explained that that if you want to know the Bible better, we offer 3 ways, basically, to do this. The first is a structured study. This is a book-by-book, Genesis to Revelation series of videos in which students are taught every book of the Bible in like a classroom setting. Each book has a number of lessons depending on the length of the book. So, Genesis, 50 lessons, Job, 9 lessons, Matthew, 13 lessons, Jude, 2 lessons, and so on. Each Bible book has a separate student's guide to help the viewer follow along, as well as a teacher's guide, transcripts, and PowerPoints if someone wants to teach the class themselves. Be a Christian for a month. If somebody has Bible Talk, they can lead an adult Bible class for 5 years before the loop starts all over again. So, and all the videos are also available in 10 different languages, but with AI, how it's progressing as quickly as it's progressing, there are more and more languages that we can translate it into. The second method is the comprehensive study. This is a multi-level, integrated study plan that covers not only the books of the Bible, but also topical courses on key Bible subjects and people. The comprehensive plan has 5 different levels, basically from level 1, basic, all the way to level 5, instructor. Of course, all the courses and guides are available for free, and they're in 10 languages, but that's a work in progress. The third method is contemplative reading study. This is a guided journey, guiding reading journey through the entire Bible with comments, instructions, and insights along the way. When you finish reading this journey, you'll truly know the Bible better. The journey is also free to download and is in 10 languages as well. So there's only one restriction to all this that we try to impose, and that is don't take the material and sell it. That's all we say to people. The gospel is supposed to be free, and so that's how we want it to be. There's bonus materials. In addition to these study plans, Bible Talk contains over 300 sermons categorized by type and topic, over 100 video devotionals, 100 articles, and one of our newest features, which my wife Rachel and my sister Julia have been working on, is BT Kids. So this is basically the same material, but it's redesigned and reformatted to work for elementary-aged children. It's complete curriculum, but it's based on the material. Also, a 7-year VBS cycle, so you get like a prepackaged VBS, all the materials that you need, all of that stuff. And also, the other thing that we're working on is BT Teens. Same concept, but catering to teenagers. So I've seen y'all's website, and not every church has as good of a website as you guys do, because one of the things that we've been working on is BibleTalk.church. You know, I don't know if you guys have been to a lot of other churches of Christ. Some of them, you know, they're faithful brethren, but it looks like they never left the Church of Christ starter kit with the wood paneling and the brochure tracks in the front. Fantastic, that's great, and that still reaches some people, but how many people does that reach compared to when you can go online? So what we're trying to do is provide digital resources for churches to set up a website so they can have their bulletins, posters, mail-outs, graphics, digital attendance records, directories, all of that stuff. Basically, free tools to equip churches across the country and across the world to help them more effectively minister to their communities. So how are we doing? Numbers. Well, total subscribers, I popped on YouTube this morning, we're at 6.8 million subscribers right now. Daily views, 54,000 people hit our site per day. Average daily subscribers that we're adding is about 8,000 per day right now. Now these are all just numbers from YouTube. We're on countless platforms, but this is by far the largest. The staff, the office staff is my father, Mike Mazzalongo, my brother-in-law, Hal Gatewood, and my sister, Julia Cienfuegos. The material is free, but it's not free to produce. So we network and we try to raise support. I'm one of those people, and the other is Curtis Hartshorn. And then we have an accountant, Tina Carpenter, does a great job. And then my nephew, and as I mentioned, my wife, Rachel, they contribute all the time. It's a family business without any money. So our mission is simple and it's straightforward. It's to preach the gospel and to teach God's word 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in every language until our Lord returns. Dad calls it a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week seed spreader for the gospel. Mark 16:15 says, "Go into all the world and preach the gospel to all of the creation." With the internet, with AI, with God's will behind us, it's now possible that we can actually do this. We're only limited by the resources that we have, and so that's why I come out here to speak to congregations. I do it also to help their preacher as well, because after you hear me, he's going to sound so much more interesting. Just kidding. But no, I thank you for the opportunity. I know sometimes it can be a little dry. This is basically digital mission work. That's what this is. As you have deduced, no less, I'm not a trained public speaker. I'm a real estate broker. But I have the chance to be part of something that is touching millions of people. You know, the people that put this little column-inch ad in the newspaper in Montreal, Canada, they're from San Antonio, Texas. I wonder if they were disappointed. One person. What do you mean? We dropped all this cash. The Montreal Gazette, that's the biggest newspaper in Montreal. They spent some money. One person One respondent. Always wonder if they were disappointed at that. They had no way of knowing, yeah, that one person, he'd reached tens of millions of people with the gospel. And now, as Alan pointed out yesterday when we were talking, I hadn't thought about it this way. He says, so cool. Now you're spreading millions of seed. Which one of those seeds is going to be the next Mike Mazzalongo or Nathan or Alan or Joe or one of you that's continuing to spread the gospel? So that's why I do this. I'm not on staff. I do it because I've watched my father do it for 20 years, and because what God's done with this ministry is just, it's bonkers. We used to freak out over 200 views. It started off in Canada. A lot of the widows, the older people that couldn't get to church in 6 feet of snow, they had to take 2 buses. We started doing a live video stream. And we were freaking out when we have 200 people watching. There's only 35 people in the church. We're like, man, 200 people, man, let's go. Yeah, well, now what we couldn't foresee, what we couldn't imagine, is what God's taken our little loaves and our little fish, and what he's done is this. And so I wanted to present it to you. I really appreciate your time. It's an honor to be here, to take this time. It's a privilege. So I thank you for your attention, and I pray that God would bless your church. Oh, yeah, sure. If there's any questions, if they're too tech savvy, I'll have to divert them to Hal, my brother-in-law. But yes.
Quick question. Is there an app?
There is. You go to the App Store, BibleTalk.tv. Boom. It's a website and an app. Yes, sir. That was a great question, because I knew the answer to that one. Any other questions about it? What countries? Over 153 countries right now. That's part of what's so cool about it. I've learned a lot. I didn't realize there's a second language most spoken in India, which is, they're creeping in on 2 billion people, is English. So there's not even that language barrier. But now with AI, man, the translation. Google Translation 5 years ago, 7 years ago, yeah, you might miss some context. But now it's getting a lot better. So I couldn't tell you. I couldn't lift off all the countries. We're 150 over. We know our analytics track where are the viewers coming from, how long are they on the site, bounce rate. Do they just hit the site and then they're off? Are they going down 2 pages? And one statistic that Nathan had kind of highlighted that he really liked was viewed hours. We can pay a clickbait farm thousands of dollars and buy our clicks. Easy peasy. You can't buy viewed hours. That's a much more significant data point. That really tells you, are people actually watching this? And for us, it's not all about clicks. That hits the ego. That hits the human side of us that's like, wow, 6.5 million subscribers. That's not what it's about. If we turn one person to the Lord, we pull one person out of the burning building, it was all worth it. God happens to be blessing our ministry with a lot of exposure. So it's exciting. It's fun. It's a fun ride to be on.
Share the story of the phone call to
Oh.
about monetizing.
By the New York. So I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall for this one. In the reporter's office. So a couple years ago, we get a reporter from the New York Times. He's writing a piece on content providing. Has nothing to do with the Lord, has nothing to do with the Bible. Amazon, Hulu, Netflix. Mr. Mazzalongo, yep. Are you Bible Talk? Yes. Do you realize that you're the #1 content provider for Amazon Prime right now? No. Analytics don't track that. Yeah, I wanted to ask you about your ad revenue. How much money are you making? How much money, what's the ad revenue? My dad doesn't know. He had to look it up. $462 last year. And he tells $462. I would have loved to see that guy's face. No. It should be like hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars. He doesn't get it. Why is all this traffic going? Nobody's blowing up a cat or jumping off a cliff. Like some old guy in a suit talking about the Jewish people in the Bible. Like, what? Why are there millions of people? And he goes, yeah, man, it's the gospel. People are looking for God. I'm sure that was Chinese to that guy. I don't know him. Maybe not. But his response was like clueless. It's like, yeah, it's the gospel. It's supposed to be free. So that's a fun story. Yes, sir.
So that, I'm just curious, why don't you guys monetize? Because it's not having, I mean, you're paying ad placement, you can control what type of ads are run through it, would raise money for the organization.
Absolutely. We've had that exact conversation. That's an excellent question. We've wrestled with that question. The short answer is we've thought about it, and I think we even tried it at one point. Again, I'm not part of the technology side. And the thought was, if we're getting this much traffic and YouTube is making bupkis on all that, how's that affecting the algorithm? And what happens if we do allow them to advertise just at the beginning and at the end? I don't want a beer commercial going through the middle of, a Sermon on the Mount, please,
You can't control who runs ads. You can sort through that, so you don't have a beer commercial or something else.
Sure.
If you wanted to ever look into that. So if all it is you wanted PG ad content, Bluebell ice cream was running an ad at the beginning or end, that you could possibly monetize.
And the thought was, because again, this is not my department, admittedly, was, whatever ad dollars we can generate, what that does to the algorithm, and then we pump it right back into advertising on YouTube in different places. Because we did do a little test run of that, and we dropped, I don't remember how much, ad dollars in YouTube in India. And it was crazy. I think it was like 1.8 million subscribers in 6 months. Like the growth chart, we were doing this, and then it did this. So that's an excellent idea, and that's kind of Hal and my dad decide what they want to do with that. Yeah, good question. Thank you. No questions on physics, theory of relativity? Good, because I don't know anything about it either. No. Thank you very much. I really do appreciate your time. It's a blessing for us to be able to share this ministry with you, to take this time. And thank you.